Collected Essays of Valerie Lynn Stevens. Critical thinking. Thinking on a higher level leads to living on a higher level. Thinking on a higher level leads to living on a higher level. Many gifted authors have graced us with their wisdom on what they have termed EQ, or emotional intelligence quotient. But what does a honing of the intellect have to do with emotional intelligence? According to the current milieu, these two things must be regarded as mutually exclusive, and not only that, they must be pitted one against the other and engineered to believe that they are one another's mortal enemies. But I've already covered the whole head over heart dilemma in my last entry, so I will now proceed into the next lesson in critical thinking, or at least the next paragraph of it. Not enough can be said about the virtues of a well-trained cognitive faculty, for a well-trained mind leads one to a well-lived life. Let me elaborate, at least briefly. Knowing how to synthesize information and how to make sense of all the entropy which tends to afflict mortal kind everywhere, including plants and animals, reaps infinite rewards. Now, when I say infinite, I'm speaking colloquially, within the very finite framework of a human lifespan not to exceed 120 years. Everything beyond that seems infinite to us, right? And although it may seem odd that we have to learn how to think, considering that our scientific designation be Homo sapiens, it is true, we do. Okay, maybe not in an informal sense, but we do have to learn how to think logically and constructively if we are to be enabled for self-actualization, especially in a world which has grown increasingly hostile and impeding to such virtuous human endeavors. Because let's face it, those higher aspirations born from the human spirit are not exactly enabled in our world. In fact, they are downright squelched at every possible impasse. In fact, this is why so many just give up and never actualize themselves on a higher and deeper level. I definitely empathize with their plight. I am, after all, human too. Cognitive dissonance leading to existential apathy and nihility is a pernicious and intractable feature of our human consciousness and condition. Then again, some of us thrive upon the challenge of creatio ex nihilo. We love to create something from nothing. Although technically there is always something there, even at what physicists call an absolute zero point energy or vacuous state. Or, as Aristotle once put it, natura abhorret a vacuo. I know I definitely do. Although the upside is that I have never really felt bored for any long period of time during my life. My mind is always working, especially when I'm asleep and dreaming. Anywho, my premise for this entry is that taking the time to contemplate the mysteries of self, other, and universe is a worthy and very fruitful endeavor for all involved. Higher thinking also leads one to better living. Because once one has breached more of an understanding about this life and why we are here, one can actually begin living the answers instead of searching for them on an intellectual and emotional level. In fact, many syntheses of mind stuffs find their apogee within a moment of being and doing out in the world. Aristotle's students became known as the Peripatetics, named after their teacher who would pace up and down the grounds of the Lyceum as he lectured. Many still find this physical motion of the body helpful in tandem with thinking, speaking, and learning. So, for those who still believe that there is such a thing as a man of action and a man of thought, and that the two are completely different species, even from a completely disparate phyla. Enough of this. Every human being contains within its potential both the capacity for thought and action. In fact, the two are mutually exclusive elements, but in a reverse mitosis kind of sense, in that one cannot be fully actualized without the other. Thus, forget about the reductionistic labels of thinker and doer. You are both. Mind you, everyone has an uneven balance of any given set of traits and her inherent abilities, but we all possess the potential for development either way. And although I have always loved the elegant turn of phrase by Heinrich Heine, "Mark ye well, ye men of action, ye are but the instruments of the men of thought," I have to say that I can no longer enjoy it as much as I used to, because I know better now and no longer agree with its premise that one can only be either or. We live in a world which attempts to engineer people's minds towards this militant form of false binary vapidity and dualism. Sure, it may be easier for some to pretend that this universe and all in it and beyond it, including themselves, are anything but astoundingly and wonderfully complex, but I prefer a world where impoverished quality of thought and quality of life will never become so familiar that I no longer even care whatever happened to my former and truer self.